Welcome to Oversharing with Rhonda, a podcast to amplify the voices of trailblazing women. My name is Rhonda Khan, and I believe in the power of authenticity, vulnerability, and storytelling to connect the masses. As a public speaking coach, speech therapist, performer, mom, and chronic oversharer, I'm often empowering others to own their stories. And what I've found is that the most transformative change happens when we share our journeys while being unapologetically ourselves. On August 20th, 2016, one of the best things that could ever happen happened to me. I became a mama to a little boy named Kareem. The moment he arrived, I knew him. I knew that boy. I knew him already. I heard him cry and I was like, oh, there he is. That's him. That's my baby. And my life was transformed forever. Now, if you're a mama, you know this feeling. If you know a mama, maybe you've heard a story like this. But everything that comes after is often less celebrated, less acknowledged, less seen, less heard. The transition to motherhood is one of the biggest life transitions one can have. It's beautiful. It's also painful. It can be scary, exciting, lonely. It's heartbreaking. It can be sad. And it can also be joyful. And it's something that no matter what you read or what you study, cannot be fully understood until you experience it for yourself. Today, I invited my good friend, Stepha LaFond, life coach for moms, to talk about this actual transition. This raw conversation is for those who are mothers, plan to be mothers, or are seeking to learn how they can support and empathize with the mothers in their lives. So let's get into it. Stepha LaFond is a life coach and mentor dedicated to helping moms navigate the space between who they are and who they're still becoming. As a mom of 2 young children, she knows firsthand the struggles of juggling the demands of motherhood, career, and life. Stepha wants to put moms at the center of the conversation, shifting the narrative on modern motherhood to one that allows space for mamas to grow, heal, and take care of themselves at every stage of their journey. Stepha LaFond, welcome to Oversharing with Rhonda.
Hey, girl.
Hey, girl.
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so thrilled to have you. Did you ever think that you would be a life coach for mothers?
Not the mother's part. So I always knew I would be a life coach. Funny enough, even when I was in college, right? So I went to school for psychology. My majors were actually psychology and Africana studies. And I knew pretty early on, like I wasn't going to be a therapist. I wasn't going to be a psychologist. It just wasn't sitting with me, even though I loved the subject. I was like, that's not how I want to work with people. And it was like a very early inklings of like life coaching and what that was. And I'm like, I'm going to be a life coach. And I share this story all the time because I do think there's kind of a difference between like our generation, which is like maybe like the older millennials really. There's a word for that, right? The millennials, 1980 to 1984, right? I forgot.
We're Zennials.
Yes. So we still have like, okay, what's happening there? We're not the 1988, 1990 millennials, but we're still millennials, right? So I think there is this freedom that younger millennials have where they're like, I'm just going to show up and be the expert, where we may not have had that. So for me, where that adds in my story is in my 20s, or after I graduated college, I didn't feel, even though people came to me for advice, like literally people's parents when I was in high school would be like, Steffi, you're going to be my therapist. They just were comfortable. I have that level of comfort where people would talk to me, and I'm just a very compassionate person. I'm a Cancer. So it's just it comes natural to me. But I never thought, I'm like, who's going to listen to a 20-something. So I literally told myself when I'm 30, I'm going to be a life coach, because 30, when you're 22 seems like, oh, it seems like you're going to be wise. You're going to know the things, and people are going to be like, yeah, that 30-year-old, I'm going to trust them. And now I'm like, oh, okay. Yes. And you could have been a life coach at 22, right? But it's just kind of like the mindset things, the things that we may not be ready for. But I always knew I would be coaching. The motherhood part came way later. It came actually so fast forward to me actually turning 30. Got pregnant literally on my 30th birthday. So be careful what you ask for. But that's what I had asked for. I was like, a lot of things are going to happen when I was 30. And the universe was like, hey, sis, you're 30, let's go. So I got pregnant, had my daughter towards the end of 30. And I was just like, Stepha, you 30 now and you're a mom. What you going to do? Like, you're doing this job. But I also wanted to be when I imagined having career day and going and talking about what I do in front of my child's classmates. And I didn't want to tell them that I was doing what I was doing just because it was something I was proud of. And I'm just like, I did say I was going to do the life coach thing. So my daughter was 4 months when I started my training. I was like, girl, we can't wait no more. It was hard.
Well, let's step back. What were you doing before you made this transition?
Sales for a pharma company. That's my background. And I enjoyed it a lot. It just wasn't my passion. I mean, it's one of those things, like, shout out to the people who do sales, outside sales, particularly in pharma. It was great, but it wasn't aligned, which for a lot of us, I remember, we were these like 20 somethings selling our things. And we would sit and have lunch together and be like, so what do you want to do? What do you want to do when you grow up? Because we came from varied backgrounds, and people would be like, well, I want to be a yoga teacher, or I want to do this and I want to do that. So picturing what else was out there, because it happened to be something we fell into, not something that we decided that nobody grows up, at least not when we were growing up, to be like, hey, that's exactly what I want to do. So, yeah.
Well, your tagline on your website says, helping mamas come home to themselves. And just hearing that makes me like, oh, how did you realize that you would be specifically working with moms and helping them to actually do that? What was that moment for you?
Yeah, for me, it was a slow but kind of like steady start in like talking to moms as I was doing my coaching. And it really came from kind of like my own experience, right? I think a lot of us, when we come into motherhood, we do the birth part. We get ready for birth. We learn all these things about birth and baby, but there isn't more conversation about what actually happens to the woman at the center of all of those things and all of the changes. And I felt like there was just an erasure of the mother's experience. And I literally was looking around. I was just like, okay, like, I've spoken to people, I've seen people, and, people were very honest with me about, how breastfeeding was and that it wasn't easy. So I knew all these things. And I'm somebody, again, I researched things. So I wanted I wanted to do naturally. And when we finally decided on home birth, I was just like, I found my midwife. I did all these things and had a great birth experience. And then I'm just like, oh, but motherhood is completely uncharted territory. And nobody was really talking to moms about the changes, about the shifts, about the way you feel inadequate, especially if you have to go back to work and you have to juggle being at work and being good at home and all of these things that were happening, and they were happening fast. So as I was doing my training event, I asked when I was joining the program, I was like, hey, I'm a mom. I have a really young baby. Do you think this is something I can do? Because we had to study, we had to hand in modules, we had to hand in coursework in order for our certification, all of that. And of course, because they wanted to sell, they were like, yes, of course you can do it. Yeah. I have kids, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm in this program with all women, mind you, and most of them didn't have kids, and certainly not little kids. I was the only one. I was still traveling with my child when we went on different things for the program. And it became clear to me that mothers and mothering was this thing that people were just doing in the background. We were just expected to like handle it and then just show up anyway. And I didn't like the energy of that. So even when I was still just doing general women's empowerment, I would talk about mothering and mothers. And then really when I had my Amari, which like my kids are 2 years apart, and my life completely changed in the sense that I had many transitions. So I had gotten laid off, which was a blessing in itself, but it's a job that I was in for 11 years, right? And then during that time, my grandmother fell really ill and was dying. So it was like all these other things happening. And I'm just like, well, shit, somebody needs to mother me. And my mother honestly was not available because her mother was dying. So it was just like, oh, this is a whole new ball game. And I like really went deep into motherhood and the identity shifts that happen as we are in this journey, and how to reconnect to that, how to chart our own course and create our own stories. And I found women who were also having the same issues, like, wait, like, I don't want to go back, right? I think a lot of us, we think, oh, I'm just going to have this baby right here. And, just at 8 weeks, we're going to go back. And we think that 8 weeks or 3 months or whatever it is, where you take time off and somehow you go back and life just, you pick up. And for me, what it really felt like is that everybody else was picking up. Everybody else's life was going, but you were here trying to pick up the pieces and figuring out what was happening.
Yeah.
And I knew women were going through that, and I wanted to give them that voice.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said all of that. And I know we talk about this all the time. Yeah. But what I always say is that motherhood is probably, if not one of the biggest life transition that a woman can make. And it is acquiring a new identity. That's what people don't think about. They don't know that, like, no, you're not just doing this thing. You are different. You are a new identity. And there is no way to prepare. You can read all these books and these articles and all this stuff and talk to all the people. But once you cross over, you really realize what actually it is. And it's often not what you think it is. So I want to ask you, how do we mother mothers going through that transition? I remember my experience. I remember, breastfeeding all day because I had a big old hungry baby. I remember that still loves to eat. I remember the sleep and all of that, but just realizing, like, not even a floating feeling, but I just felt like loose. And
it's an out of body experience. You feel a little scattered. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Out of body is it for a while. And there's like a fog.
Yes, I was going to say the fog.
It's the fog.
When people come to me, they're just like, I just feel like in a fog. I'm like, yeah, girl, that's where you at.
That's where you at.
Yeah. So your question is, how do you prepare mothers, or how do you mother mothers through that? And to me, there's a couple of things, but first is the deep understanding of what their needs are and how to support those needs. And mothers not knowing what to expect is the big problem. And not to understand that this is normal, that they are going to a major shift, a major transition, and they are going to experience physical, emotional, physiological identity. Their relationships are going to change, and they have to understand that that's part of the process, because if not, then the shame comes. It's me. Something's wrong with me. I am the problem, right? Not like, oh, I didn't expect this. It becomes this thing like, oh, what's wrong with me? Everybody else did this. Everybody else is doing this. And nobody on Instagram telling me I'm supposed to be in a fog for 9 months.
Right.
Everybody's journey is a little different, but there is this understanding that somehow, you just get by. Oh, this is how motherhood's supposed to be. And I really want mothers to really feel held, supported, seen, to be like, girl, I see you.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that. I remember my early months of having my son, and really the early first couple years. He's 4.5 almost now. And what meant so much to me was more so people telling me that I was doing a good job, because you don't know what you're doing when you start. Them telling me that meant that they saw me. And I just needed that seeing of like, you're doing fine, you're doing a good job. And that kind of kept me in some level of grounding place. And, I didn't need everybody to fix and solve, although help was very welcomed and appreciated when it came. It was more so like, see me, see what this massive life change is doing, and see that I'm working, see that I'm trying. And that meant everything. That meant so much hearing
and
that.
And I think for me, that's when self-care really, I didn't have to think about self-care before kids. Right?
Yeah.
You just did stuff for yourself. If you needed downtime, you took downtime, whatever. Yes, we overextended ourselves and we did more when we didn't have kids, but it was just easy to be like, oh, I'm going to take a break today. I'm going to have a lazy day. But especially when your kids are young and they need so much of you. Like I remember, so when I first had my daughter, we were living like on the second floor of a brownstone, and I had a great landlord. She was amazing. And she would be like, if you need anything, let me know. And I remember feeling like, oh, okay, yeah. Right. And then one day I needed to just run to the corner store. And I'm like, shit, I can't just run to the corner store that's right there because there's a small baby and my husband's at work. And I had to be like, hey, girl, I'm going to the corner store. Can you go upstairs? And it was just like, you do need more support. And I think for a lot of us, we're ambitious, we're functioning. Again, for this generation of women, a lot of us have had careers. We went to school, we did all these things, and we took the steps. Right? We're like, to get from point A to B, we just take these steps and that's how it works. Yeah. And it hits you in the face when you get to be a mother and you're like, okay, I'm taking steps, but I don't know what's happening. I'm taking the steps.
The steps ain't working.
There are no steps. Where are the steps? Right? So it can be a really hard thing if you're used to like, well, A plus B equals C. And you're like, oh, no, not today. Not today. The baby changed its mind. Okay, what am I doing? Yeah.
And your steps, what happens is not based on you, right? Or what your choices. You really understand control in a different way by being a mother, meaning you don't have none. That's what it is.
It is a lesson. I think if you fall into it, if you really lean into like, what is it trying to tell me? But another thing that I try to get clients to understand when I'm working with them is like, your motherhood is not the problem. You are certainly not the problem. We live in a society and a system that does not support mothers. It doesn't support taking time to understand what's going on and this transition and this new pace that you have to move in. It's literally a different season of your life, which there's a term for the phase of the transition into motherhood, et cetera. But we're not thought about it because motherhood is not valued. Women's work is not valued unless you are producing for the system to bring money in. It's not valued. So you're left almost just empty-handed to kind of figure it out.
Speaking of that, let's have a conversation about mothers returning to work, because that of all the transitions is a very difficult one. And also one that is not talked about enough. How can we better support women transitioning back to work after becoming mothers? And how can they support themselves?
Oh, there are so many ways. So the ideal thing would be like just give, especially in the US where we have really, really horrible family leave and some people don't get it at all. I think is really requesting. I would love for some legislation around longer paid time off for parents, right? Not just mothers, because the fathers need to be there too. And the thing that happens again in the system that doesn't value the work of a mother, the work of really parenting is just like, now this all falls on the mom, where it is helpful. And we know that we have friends and colleagues who are in other countries, and we see what happens when both parents are able to take time and enter this phase together. So there's likely going to be some disconnect because the mom's role and the dad's role are different, but how can we start there and give longer leave? And then after that, I would love to have moms understand that they can ask for help. and determine what that looks like for them, right? Is it having a family member, if that's accessible to you? A lot of us don't have that access. I think there's a lot of shame, particularly with Black moms and moms of color, about bringing nannies because, again, the historical context of nannies. And if they felt like, well, my mom was able to do X, Y, and Z. So there's a lot of things that people have to work through. But I love, telling women that they need support. I know I couldn't have done anything without my nanny. She became a part of the family. So what does support look like for you? And understanding that it's not just, oh, now that I'm back home, it's automatically back to the kids, and that there's going to be days that's like that, but carving time out for you and something that brings you joy, and knowing that it can be like 10 minutes, right? Especially when the babies are young, it evolves, but really being like, what do I need right now? Do I just need a cup of tea? Just to sit down and drink some tea without listening to anything, or maybe listening to an audiobook or a podcast or something of that nature that doesn't require giving of myself. Because we give. We'll go to work, we'll rush, we'll pump in the middle of the day, we'll barely eat lunch, we'll rush to this, we rush to pick up the kid from daycare. What do you need? What does that look like? And those are things that to experience with and understand before coming in or while you're pregnant, right? So it doesn't feel so overwhelming. Ask your friends, ask your community, really finding who's there for you rather than being like, I'm in siloed, I'm doing this by myself or with maybe one person, because it's very hard. It's very hard. I think a lot of us don't live near our families, or maybe if we are near our families, they're working too. So they're busy. So what does that support look like for you? And sitting down with somebody and really understanding like what that means and how that would look. I also love to tell moms to think about the workplace. Like you're a change, you have different needs. Don't be afraid to ask for what your needs are. There are plenty of moms where there are like not even basics covered. Like they don't have a place to pump, and it becomes an issue. So it becomes uncomfortable. So start there. But also like if you have to leave at a certain time, or if you need an extra day, now we've all been working remote. We know what that's like. So I hope that's given some moms confidence to be like, I can do this work remotely too. But really adjusting your schedule to something that fits you, because work should be a place that is there. They need your resources. And I like to say they need your resources more than you need them, right? You are the talent, you are the asset. So don't approach it like they're doing you a favor.
This is a perfect transition into what I was about to ask you. And it was about how moms can set better boundaries, because boundaries is a word that continues to come up with people, especially for women and especially for moms. But before I even asked that directly, a lot what you were saying and what I kept hearing was not asking for what you want. Like a lot of times we just do not ask before we even have to set a boundary. We're not even asking. And I feel like a lot of the conversation, especially for women, especially for mothers, especially for women of color, there's an expectation of self-sacrifice, right? That exists. And it's also, it's like this like the good mother is self-sacrificing and everything for her children. And I feel like that's already a part of motherhood. Like that's embedded in the job, that there is a level of like part of what you do is just in there naturally. You don't have to add that element. But we get so caught up in that idea, whether we believe it or not, because we can intellectually be like, oh, no, I don't believe in that. But we still fall into the same trap.
Yeah,
and so how can we detach from that narrative and set boundaries and ask for what we need? Because I feel like that is an area for growth for almost everyone, but especially for moms.
That's, oh my goodness, such a good point. And I think it's just what you're explaining is really like the martyr, right? Like not only am I doing this and I'm showing up and I am being nurturing and amazing, but I have to take an extra step. And again, it's what society has put on us. It's just like, no, you have to do this. And it becomes like a competition, right? And if you look at common culture and if you look at what it teaches us, even from as young kids, like, how can I do it better? How can I crush it? And like, you're not trying to crush it. You're trying to figure out what works best for you what is your capacity? I like to ask her, what's your capacity right now? So it's not that you're being
Don't ask me that right now. Don't ask me that right now.
You're not being an awful person, but it's like, what's your capacity? So I have 3 things that I always bring back when I'm working and coaching clients, and just like, what are your values? So we really get to like your values. What are those 5 things that are important? What are the things that you need to make you shine, to make you just like, okay, this feels good. And it's not necessarily exact science to like, I need to work out 2 hours a day, right? But it's like, what is the feeling there? What are the things that can bring me that right now during this season? So season is the second thing. So my values, my season, and what's my capacity during the season? So you may be a helpful person. You may be somebody who loves to do X, Y, and Z. You may be really into work, but where is your capacity right now? Where's your capacity? So how are you going to shift your focus during the season? What do you need to focus on right now? Sometimes it's going to be more work. But in the beginning, when you're a mom and you're really trying to understand this and whatever, motherhood is what you're working on. And everything else is going to look a little different. Can we be okay with that? Can you give yourself the space to understand like the slower kind of pace in life and know that it's going to change, it's going to evolve. But what I see a lot is that people go through many transitions. They transition into motherhood. Meanwhile, they're moving. There's this happening in their family. There's this happening at work. And they just like, la, la, la. And then eventually they're like, I'm like, when did you take time to acknowledge any of those transitions? Let alone the transition into motherhood. Oh no, I didn't do that. I didn't do any. Sit down. You're doing a lot. Take time to understand how those things have shifted you, how those things have made you look at life differently. What do you need? Is there something you're still need to grieve? We don't grieve things. We just move on.
Okay, Stepha, don't be getting me to crying on this podcast. Don't get me crying. I'm just like, oh, this is me. Oh, this is me. Okay.
It's a lot of us, right? Like I was surprised. I mentioned to you, like I had, not only had Amari and my grandmother passed. So like, I did take time to grieve that, and I took a step back from coaching, but I also had to grieve surprisingly, my career, particularly at that company. It was a large company, came with a lot of clout. And even though I was ready to leave and I was ready to just spread my wings, experience different things, I did not realize. I was working part-time after that. And I had a moment where I had to introduce myself to a client, and I was no longer, it was my name. I'm Stepha from here. And I almost choked because I wasn't from there anymore. Right? And I'm like, oh, I need to sit with that and see why, like, that was also a part of me. And gracefully let that go and say, like, we're just going to move on. We don't need this. Da, 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 da. No, this happened. And there's a lot of things we don't let ourselves grieve. We just be walking on past
Girl. So I'm going to pause. No, I'm not going to pause. This is really, really important. I'm so glad you're saying this, because I think everything you've said today, but especially this part, for my fellow mamas who are very ambitious, you know who you are, that just go through goal and do multiple things. For instance, I started my business when my son was 6 months. And it's funny, during this conversation, I don't know if you and I have ever talked about this. I started my business. I was like, oh, let me start a business around them. That same month, my grandmother passed away. And my first cousin within like 2 or 3 weeks of each other. And I know I never processed it, girl. I know I never processed it, but like there were always moving parts. And then we briefly moved. For those of you who know me, I briefly lived in Atlanta for about 4 months. Like, so everything you were saying was very much, I think there's also something, okay, you have the ambitious part, but you also have something of, I think motherhood has this survival tactic that instantly happens because you are responsible for another person's life all of a sudden. And so you think like it's a primal, like, okay, what is next? We got to survive. And you saying that for people like me and other of my mom friends and people I know gives us the freedom and liberation and permission to just sit with those feelings.
Sit with those
And
feelings.
grieve, or just allow yourself to feel, which I don't think mamas, we don't give ourselves time for.
No.
Or space.
And oftentimes we don't have the support to. And that's what I try to be for my moms, or try to help them identify, well, like, who can have you talked even to your friend or your spouse, if you have one, your partner, like, who is holding you? Who is taking that time for you? Because if you're not telling them and everybody's in the move, by the time you realize that you just broken down, you are broken down, and you're just like, oh my God, I never took the time. And I'm just like, give yourself the time.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give myself the time as soon as we get off. but I want to switch the conversation. Recently, I believe your most recent live video on Instagram was about incorporating joy.
Yes.
We've been talking a lot about taking care of ourselves, setting boundaries. There's also so much wonder and happiness in being a mother. Yes. How do we incorporate more joy into motherhood?
I think is finding ways to be present and not always doing. So that's what's helped me, because it's a lot. We do a lot. So it's just like, where can I find joy for myself? Where can I find joy with what my children are doing? And when we don't take the time to get ourselves supported, whatever that looks like, we're exhausted. So there might be something funny happening and you're just like, okay, whatever. So like, and I've been there. I'm saying it because I've been there. So really taking the time to be like, okay, this could be awful, but how do I make priority for joy? And I'll give you a specific example because I don't want it to be like so like in the air, right? Around the time I had Amari, there was also a lot of things happening as far as like Philindo Castile, Alton Sterling. It was like all those things happening. So like brutality against Black bodies. And to add that on top of life, that just made me very sad. And I remember making the decision one day, it was hot summer day. And I'm just like, I haven't been out with both kids by myself yet, but I'm going to do it. And I strapped him to my chest. I put Anais in the stroller and we went to the splash pad in Prospect Park. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, we're just going to go and have fun today. It might be a little stressful trying to like get on the shuttle with these kids, but I'm going to do it. And that's what we did. We just got on the train, rode a couple stops, went to Splash Pad, and it was mostly uneventful. And it was so good. I remember I still have pictures on my phone. Anu at that time, she was 2. She met some little friends and they were playing, and it was a lot of these Black and brown children who were just running around. The world was completely crappy. If you watch the news, it was crazy. Yeah. But they were running around and having fun. And I remember just enjoying that. That's what I'm talking about, making room for joy. Pausing, because there's a lot that can get to us, a lot of things that can get us down. It's just like, where do I take the space to just enjoy right now? And it could be just having a dance party for yourself. Yeah. Just what's your favorite song? What's an album you haven't listened to, but that used to be your thing, whether it was in college, at the club, whatever, but you haven't allowed yourself to just get loose. One of my friends, she's all about twerking. She says twerking is spiritual. So get into your body, just move, and just allow yourself those moments. And it could literally be a 3-minute song, but you're like, and that's it. That's what I mean by finding joy, finding little moments of joy and giving yourself that, because the world's not going to give it to you. It's yours, and you have to claim that joy.
Claim your joy. That's it. That might be our title. Listen. So, Stepha, I can talk to you forever. We do talk forever. I will be talking to you. I have received so much from you just in this episode alone, and I know everybody is going to really be transformed. Where can we keep in touch with you? How can we keep in touch with you? What's going on?
Yes, absolutely. So the best place to find me is I'm always on Instagram, and my handle is at Mama Slay Life. So it's MAMASLAYLIFE. So you can find me there. You can also find me on my website, which is Stepha, STEPHA, LaFond, LAFOND SelfCare.com. It's literally my name.
Wonderful. Thank you for being a guest on Oversharing with Rhonda.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy I was able to talk to you.
Y'all, I needed this conversation. Fellow moms, I hope you felt seen and heard and awakened and possibly restored. I want you to know that you are not alone. Please take your time to grieve and sit with your feelings. Ask for what you need. Set those boundaries and claim your joy. I'm giving you all a big, big virtual hug. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe on iTunes, leave us a review, and let us know what you enjoyed about the episode. See you next time. Bye.